Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Digital Badge Academy webcast series. I'm Jim Daniels, your co-host, along with David Leeser, who is going to introduce our guest for today. David.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Charles, for joining us. We have Charles Cornish from American Apprenticeships Work today. And I think, Charles, I think we met you through the apprenticeship, your work with apprenticeships.
That's correct. Yes. The work you were doing at IBM or the work that's been done at IBM was kind of a guidepost for us starting our company here in the United States to help bring this incredible tool for workforce development to U.S. audiences and show them that apprenticeships aren't just for the trades. They can be used for every jobs and create opportunities.
That's fantastic. So now do you go by Charles or Charlie?
Charles, if my mom wants to get my attention.
Yes.
Typically Charlie.
Jimmy for me.
Yeah.
All right. So, all right. Well, Charlie, hey, why don't we get started by you just giving folks a little bit of background on yourself and what you do?
Yeah, excellent. So I've been in workforce development for the past 10 years, working with small startups, helping organizations overcome the challenges of digital disruption. So 10 years ago, what are the implications for mobile devices? How are they going to impact business? How's that going to impact how you interact with your customers? And a great way to understand that training and work with organizations. About 5 years ago, I was introduced to the concept of apprenticeships, which are a large workforce development tool over in the UK and Europe, where about 15% of the workforce uses this as an opportunity to retrain and reskill people for jobs of the future. And jobs of the future can be anything from now talking about AI, but things like data analytics, cybersecurity, anything that's going to have any sort of digital technical skill that's changed in the past 5 years. And the main calling for this is universities are great. They're a fantastic way for education, but they're not the best for workforce development for the modern workforce, especially with the pace of change of technology. So organizations are trying to find a way to train people more effectively, and apprenticeships are a great way to do that. So you can train someone on the job with the skills you need, get them upskilled, and have them be effective within the company, and also provide them an opportunity to get started in a career they might not have had the opportunity for before.
It's democratizing too. I mean, it seems like what's old is new. I mean, we started with the guild days, right? And then even
Yeah.
after like the world wars, we really focused on all these workforce programs. And then somewhere we took a turn away from that and we stopped, providing all this vocational training and everything else. I think it was I know it was in the 80s or whatever it was. But but it really is coming back in force. And you have people and thought leaders like Ryan Craig that are really out there pushing it. And so I just a couple questions about it. So from your perspective, and we'll get into all the stats and everything maybe too, but um, in the United States, is there a problem getting people in apprenticeships? What industries are embracing and adopting it right now? But do you see any resistance, or is it starting to is the mindset starting to change?
Yeah, great question. The mindset's definitely starting to change, but I think the biggest challenge is awareness that apprenticeships, like you said, can be used for these tools. There was a drop off for whatever reason in them being utilized in the workforce. And oftentimes companies see these as a great solution, but onerous and challenging to get started. Where do we get the expertise? How do we do the training? Maybe we don't have a sophisticated training department. And what do we do? And it seems like a great idea, and then it just falls off. So I think the education level and the awareness level of bring these back to the forefront is probably the most important step for getting companies to see that this is a way to do it. And there's also really easy ways to get this going in as little as 12 weeks.
Well, fascinating. Um, so what about outside the US? I mean, do you see any trends? Are the trends different, I guess, from your point of view, as far as how apprenticeship programs may be working in other parts of the world?
Yeah,
Where the US or North America could learn from.
yeah, absolutely. So in the UK, for example, a large portion of the workforce uses apprenticeships, and that's partially because there's a government sponsored program to get that into action. But the UK has a very sophisticated way of doing it and a very forward-thinking, progressive mode for training this, where you see it across many organizations. It's almost a household name, and people really understand that apprenticeships are another way of being trained on the job. Whereas in America, if you ask someone what's an apprenticeship, they might even say blacksmith or something going far back into the Middle Ages, because again, it's not that that common. There's not a high level of awareness here. So I think what the US can learn from the UK and from Germany is that, yes, this does work. It takes a mind shift change and it takes a commitment. But once you make that commitment, it's really, really easy to get done and to get implemented.
So, what is it you do then specifically to make this happen? What's the whole process? Say, do you actually work with companies to create bespoke employees, or how does it, how do you plug in?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are what's considered an intermediary. So we work between the U.S. Department of Labor, who registers these programs, and organizations to get them launched. There's a lot of ways to do this, but we consider ourselves an end-to-end solution. So we work with companies to say, what skills gaps do you have? What jobs are you trying to hire for? Maybe it's data analytics, maybe it's cybersecurity, and then we can take programs and tailor it to their needs without getting too deep into the customization hole. We also work with trade bodies to identify what are the job skills needed in the next 5 and 10 years, and we'll create apprenticeships for that in partnership with the U.S. Department of Labor, and then work with organizations to bring those on board. And once they're on board, we take care of all aspects of training, everything from the learner management to one-to-one coaches to the instruction. So essentially, companies can keep doing business the way they're doing business, and we act as the de facto HR L&D arm, which really frees up a lot of resource and frees up a lot of the challenges of adopting these. Because if someone wanted to start an apprenticeship company at their organization, they would need to have those that expertise in place, which is challenging.
So that makes me think, when I think of, you said something earlier that really resonated. I think when a lot of people think apprenticeship, they think like blacksmith or something along those lines. So I think, at least here in America, how we historically have thought about apprenticeships is something that's really needed to change, right? I mean, because it can now apply so much more broadly to other things. How is this apprenticeship program? Are there some differences between the apprenticeship programs that you all set up and, say, internship programs that companies would typically have, other than maybe length of duration, perhaps?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the main difference between an internship and apprenticeship, to borrow from Ryan Craig, David, who you mentioned earlier, is it's a paid job. So internships can be paid sometimes, but most importantly, apprenticeships are a paid job with paid work experience, and it's a structured learning experience. So as opposed to an internship where someone shadows, maybe they talk to some people in the organization and kind of see how things work through osmosis and pick things up as they go. With an apprenticeship, it's a very structured way of learning where they have classroom time, they have application time, they have project time, and they sit down with mentors and understand how this fits into not only their job, but their future skills. And also creates the real world work experience. They're working on a specific job. And when they finish the program, unlike an internship, they have a certification from the Department of Labor and sometimes industry certifications that says, I'm an apprentice in X, I can do this job, and I have these certifications, which, while well-intentioned with a lot of internships, they don't often provide that kind of benefit to the employee.
So, who are the candidates for your program, and where do you find them?
Yeah, absolutely. So we often say apprenticeships enable people to hire on potential, not credential. One of the biggest barriers to getting a job in tech, getting a job in general, can be a college degree. And so the first thing we do is we remove that requirement for a college degree, which enables us to look at a much larger pool of people and have them hire based on what they can do and their skills, which attracts people to the job that may never thought this opportunity existed. So we'll work with organizations to hire veterans groups, women returners, hire more diversely, meaning people not necessarily with a degree background or a degree at all. And also internally, some people in the organization who might be at risk from automation, which is obviously a big trend right now, or someone who's been working maybe help desk for a long time, but again, doesn't have that experience to get into an IT job. This is a great way to bridge that. And so you can pull internally and externally for these pools.
You mentioned all the things that are wrapped up inside of an apprenticeship program,
Yeah.
and definitely there's a lot more there than what you see in a typical internship type of engagement. How do you go about capturing all of those, the experiences, the classroom activities? What's the method of documentation or credentialing
Yeah.
approach that you take? around that?
Absolutely. So we use what's called a competency-based approach. So apprentices have to demonstrate that they're able to do something on the job. And so we have an LMS. It's a version of Canvas, which a lot of universities use,
Mhm.
a lot of organizations use. We've bent it to our will to work for the apprenticeship program. But this enables us to not only set out the structured learning, but track it as we go and evidence it. And what I mean by that is the apprentice has the opportunity every single month to sit down with their mentor, one of our coaches, and say, here's the competency I was working for. For example, say, take a data set, manage it, and present it to leadership. Here's the data I took, here's how I present it, and here's a presentation I did. This is something I can do. And what that means is they've demonstrated the competency. We take that evidence and then we submit it to the Department of Labor to show that that person has completed it. And once they complete all their competencies, they get their certification. So there's a lot to it, but we manage it within our system to make it easier, not just for the apprentice, but also for organizations, because again, if you want to do this yourself as an organization, there's a lot of nuance in terms of reporting that you need to do.
So what are some of the challenges of doing this? I mean, is there, again, is it an awareness type thing, or is it specific to certain industries that are resistant, or different groups within companies that are more amenable to it?
Yeah, I think awareness is definitely the largest challenge, and kind of breaking the ceiling, as it were. I think getting in the front door and then showing stakeholders that this is something that works, this is how it can work. And quite often we see the first few months, everyone's getting adjusted to this new program. They think it's going to be very cumbersome. They think it's going to take up a lot of bandwidth and create bottlenecks. What they quickly realize is it actually eases up those bottlenecks and creates more bandwidth. And then those stakeholders see how easy this is, how it works, and then how effective it is for not only training their employees, but keeping the work on task as well. So I think the awareness part is the biggest challenge, and then changing hearts and minds, which is basically right now our experience is you have to show people or show them that it's been done somewhere else.
And have you been able to use digital badging as part of kind of going back to the whole piece with how you're capturing and documenting, and just essentially recognizing what individuals are achieving or have achieved? Where does digital badging come into play around that?
Yeah, absolutely. We see it as a tremendous opportunity for apprenticeships and the entire learning environment. Some of the tools we use for our learning programs have badges in them. So when apprentices go through, they get awarded. And on the gamification side of things, it feels great, but it also adds credence to what they're learning. And we've always found it a great tool for engagement, but also excitement, encouragement for apprentices. And it's something that we have in our pipeline to incorporate quite heavily going forward. But right now we're in the nascent stages of putting that into place.
Do you think, I mean, I just saw a SHRM study that just came out that showed the perception of alternative credentials
Yeah.
in the workforce, and it was really pretty surprising. I think I'll look at the numbers real quick, but it was something like, 80 or 90% of managers, line of business leaders, C-suite, and the HR leaders now believe that alternative credentials are a valid way to signal achievement. And I don't think that was even true a couple years ago. Are you seeing that as well? Do you think that, or is there still resistance like, well, we need a college degree, or is it very specific to certain types of industries or roles? I mean, obviously
No,
there are certain roles.
I would definitely agree with that sentiment, especially in the past 2 years where there's been, it feels like a shift in perception, almost at the first stages of a paradigm shift. But managers, recruiters are starting to add a lot more credence and weight to those certifications, whereas before they might have been seen as something that didn't quite outweigh a degree, but now it's something that is opening doors for people, and truly showing that this is something they've learned, this is something they can do, and this is something that carries value.
David and I were on a panel recently, a few months back with Cal Poly, along with some other industry professionals. And there was an individual from LinkedIn, and this still just rings so loudly in my head. He talked about jobs at LinkedIn and which ones, really required a degree and which didn't. But the metric that he gave was that 60% of jobs at LinkedIn no longer required a degree. So I thought that was pretty compelling. That tells me that we talk about alternative credentials, but there's, I think, the which are hugely important. But I think it really gets down to alternative pathways to employment. And if you
Yeah.
think about the cost of a college degree these days, it's just out of reach. It's
Yeah.
just completely out of reach for so many more people than it used to be. And quite frankly, uh, the different ways and modalities and how technology has impacted the whole process of learning, they're clearly just, as you're, demonstrating through the programs that you're running, definitely very effective alternatives to learning skills and, developing competencies and getting employed. And I think that's probably the key thing that just, rings clear to me about this is just, it is a compelling alternative pathway to employment.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think we've had recruiters and organizations we're working with that are looking at apprenticeships and looking at the alternative way to hire. And quite often what you don't see in resumes and don't see in degree backgrounds is someone's ability to take initiative and someone's ability to learn new skills. And badges and certifications are an instant indicator that they're a self-starter, they have that ambition, and can pick up new tasks. And so we see a lot of positive reactions from that from recruiters and hires on our end.
Yeah. Do you think that it also, I mean, I think, when I think about my college degrees, and my graduate degree in particular, and I've talked about this before, but in graduate school, I had some really terrific skills training around diffusion of innovation and some of these other things about management styles and leadership styles. None of that shows up on anything but a piece of paper. And it doesn't certainly get down to that micro level that would tell an employer that, you know what, I studied diffusion of innovation with one of the leaders in the world.
Yeah.
But now you can do that with
Yeah.
digital badges and with the credentials and with your program. And I'm just wondering, that information, is that information consumable to organizations at this point, or do you think there's work to be done? Because really, if an organization is, I think the future of organizations needs to get to the level where we have that micro level understanding of a person's capabilities.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think there was a stigma for a long time with organizations when looking at these alternative ways of demonstrating knowledge, especially at a granular level. But I think the door is certainly opening for that, in my perspective.
Do the systems support it at this point, though?
Systems in what respect?
Well, like the HR systems, for example, is it easy to be able to create a skills inventory or registry in an organization that is that can be mined?
Yeah, I'd like to see it everywhere. Unfortunately, you get 1,000 companies. Sometimes it feels like 1,000 ways of doing the same thing.
Mhm.
But there's incredible tools out there on the market that are aggregating this and doing it for you, like My Inner Genius, for example.
Yeah, and badges, right? I mean, Jim,
Badges, yeah, excuse me, yeah.
yeah,
Apologies.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I think,
I think, but yeah, absolutely badges.
yeah, I mean, from what I've been able to see, employers are definitely embracing the idea um, in a wholehearted way in terms of, you know, being able to look at candidates that are coming through alternative pathways,
Mhm.
right, for gaining skills and building competencies. Um, the systems they have in place, I think, are evolving slower, right? To
Yeah.
your point, you deal with 1,000 companies, you're going to deal with 1,000 different ways that they ingest information and make use of it and that kind of thing. I think in large part, a lot of employers out there are still using the, same kind of systems for in terms of the recruiting and the hiring process and evaluation of candidates. A lot of the tools and the processes and methodologies are the same ones that have been in place for a long time. I think they're definitely trying to make that switch, and there clearly is some HR tech that has come about that's really helping improve that. I think we've got a ways to go there for sure, and I would have to think that um, is one of those things that you wake up and think about every day as far as, employers being able to truly embrace these kind of programs in an effective way, just from a technology perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I have a question for you, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you have any
Yeah.
success stories that would be really interesting of somebody who's gone through a program and you know, wasn't able to get into what we would consider a traditional pathway?
Yeah, absolutely. Quite a few. The first one that comes to mind is we had an individual. He had done some community college, left community college because of life reasons, was working at this organization for about 10 years as kind of an administrator, the person you'd call who could help unlock a password or help with small network issues. And while this was $1 billion company, they had a smaller IT organization. And so he was running around it and he was the go-to guy, but didn't really have the polished skills or the technical skills to go to the next level. And we put him on an apprenticeship program. And I'd say his communication skills at the very beginning were okay, but needing work. And so we put him on not only a training program for IT and cybersecurity, but robust business skills, everything from writing emails to giving presentations to taking technical docs and communicating them to non-stakeholders who basically don't speak the language. And as I go through all these professional trainings, I wish I had them at the beginning of my career. And then seeing the transformation of this individual, even after 3 months and then 6 months, giving presentations to the CEO and the board was an incredible transformation. Not only his business skills ability, but building confidence in his work. And so I think my favorite part of all these programs is creating the pathways is amazing. Giving people this opportunity is amazing. Everyone's taking advantage of the opportunity, but seeing that needle move and seeing people grow so quickly, it's something I haven't seen in 4 years of college. I haven't seen in career, my personal career, and in careers I've studied. And so it's an incredible tool to really transform the trajectory of someone's life and career in a very short amount of time.
Well, that just underscores one of the big advantages of programs like this, right? Is how quickly you can spin talent up, not just in the core skills,
Yeah.
but those surrounding business skills. To your point, the remarkable, change in this individual just in a span of 6 months. Um, you know, I, that would never happen in a college environment.
Yeah, exactly. And that coming out of college, a lot of organizations, people could be the best coder in the entire world, but don't have those business skills. And so it can be a challenge even for college graduates.
And it seems the best of both worlds would be a collaboration with colleges. And I think a lot of colleges are starting to get there. But when you
Yeah.
think about it, with the amount of reskilling and upskilling that is going to be needed in the future, in not just the United States, but around the world, because of the technology changes so quickly,
Yeah.
and the number of people and the costs of everything is as well. Our traditional education systems are so overtaxed and overburdened, they can't handle it all.
Cool.
And
Yeah.
so how do you scale something like you're doing up to be able to fill that gap?
Yeah, absolutely. And I view it as very complementary to the college system as opposed to changing that, which would be a very a big uplift. I feel apprenticeships can plug directly into that part of the pipeline. For example, we interview people who are applying for, say, a data analyst job who studied art history and English. Never, ever, ever would it be considered for these jobs previously. But you sit down with them, you talk to them, you understand that they've done some Python coding, you get a feeling of who they are as a person, and you see that this is actually not only a great fit for the culture of the company, but this person is truly passionate about doing this and just chose to study something else 4 years ago and shouldn't be a victim of those circumstances. So with an apprenticeship, you can actually unlock that pathway for them that was closed off by what they were studying and put them into the tech program. So I see it as a way to cultivate the skills that they've learned in school and focus that onto a new career pathway. Where before, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, certainly 20 years ago when I was entering the job market, not a possibility at all.
We talk about the college system, and I love the college system. I mean, it's
Yeah.
great for what it does. But I still think that, with the pace of change that's happening right now, upskilling is now has to be in constant motion in an organization. So even if you came out from a college degree, like you just mentioned,
Yeah.
you still need to have that. So, I'm curious to what your viewpoint is on two things. One is, like as you just mentioned, people coming out of school, they have this great college degree, so they have that signal of achievement there and have, the reputation. But then I think many of these people, and we found that even when we were working with Northeastern University, would like to have these relevant liquid skills that are needed in IT. And so to be able to come out like from Northeastern University with a college degree plus digital badges from IBM,
Yeah.
A plus B made them much more valuable in the workforce. But then even beyond that, when they get into the workforce, do you see that this, what you're doing may evolve into some sort of ongoing, always keeping people in motion and up to date? I don't know what your thoughts
Yeah,
are.
no, I completely agree with that sentiment. I think if you're to look at a graph of a career trajectory 20, 30, 40 years ago, it was a stick with it for 20 years and you're good. It's a straight line. I don't know if this is going to be visual for everyone out there listening, but I'm drawing a straight line and diagonal. That's over, a 40, 50-year career. And I think now it's more of a, if you look at a step ladder, every 3 to 5 years, you're going to have to change your career in some directional way because skills are changing so quickly, especially for tech. Tech jobs have a very, very short shelf life, less than 3 years for coding and most common IT skills. So people starting at university are going to graduate with skills that aren't necessarily job ready. So they're going to need to keep learning on the job. And so I think the companies that we find the most success with are the ones that either have a culture of learning already, where they encourage that reskilling, or are starting to see the writing on the wall and changing the way they do things and understanding that things change very quickly. ChatGPT was not even a thing a year ago, and now we're starting to see the effects of it in the economy. We'll see it in a few years. But yes, I would absolutely agree that this is going to have to be a 3 to 5 year reskilling on a personal level or in a structured approach with apprentices. But I see every individual who wants to succeed in the job force, and I think everybody's capable of that, being a constant learner and being a lifetime learner and constantly reskilling.
I would think that the community college space would be a particular sweet spot in terms of a program like you're driving there. Um, if you think about, everything that you're standing up and how eager community colleges are to have that relationship with, industry,
Yeah.
that there might be some real synergy there. Are you seeing that as far as specifically from the community college space, interest in what you all are doing?
We are, yeah, and we're seeing across the country community colleges directly connecting with those organizations. I think California is very advanced in that. Not only is the federal government supportive, but the state government is very supportive of creating those apprenticeship programs for these, I would say, non-traditional apprenticeship jobs, but what everyone considers a traditional job. And what I mean by that is community college, it wouldn't be uncommon to learn how to be an auto mechanic at community college. Still isn't. But learning how to do business intelligence or cybersecurity and get a job doing that with an apprenticeship is a newer concept. So we're seeing a lot more community colleges and colleges adopting it because it's a supplement to what they're doing without changing their ways of working necessarily.
So if you're king for a day and you said, hey, you know what? I want to take this thing to the next level in the United States. What would you say would be the one or two or three things that you would say, you know what, if we did this one thing or these two or three things, this would really accelerate this program?
Oh, that is an amazing question and one I probably should have given a lot of thought to every single day. But I guess if I could wave a wand and be a king for a day on getting this adopted, I would say changing the perception and mindset of what an apprenticeship means and can be for individuals. And then instantly wave the wand again and show chief learning officers and people who are stakeholders in companies that this is actually a very easy thing to do and there's very easy ways to do it, and the benefits of that, meaning you can change a lot more lives a lot quicker and achieve your business results. And I think the third one would be government support. And why I say that is the government has a very powerful influence on how organizations can operate and do operate. And I think showing a more support for this, they already do a tremendous job, would be fantastic. And I'd actually argue that apprenticeships are one of the few topics domestically that are bipartisan, everybody supports. And there's a lot of momentum going for this, but I would 10x it. And I think we'd see a model much closer to what we're seeing in Germany, in the UK, where it's 15-20% of the workforce. And a lot of people are having transformational changes in their careers because of these programs.
You know, it's interesting you put that in that order because I think it was Margaret Thatcher that said you win the argument and then you win the vote,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
that's really what it is, right? It's you have to make the market here
Yeah.
and build the awareness, and then everybody jumps on.
Yeah, and we definitely see it as early days for tech apprenticeships, but they're growing considerably. And we're proud to be a part of that. But I definitely see it taking off this decade, and being a more conventional approach for people to enter the workforce and for organizations to look at how they hire, to train, and reskill people.
Yeah, I would agree. I think tech apprenticeships, I, I, I think there'll be a surprising percentage of tech jobs that are filled through these kind of programs as we move forward, and on an increasing level as well. I'm just a huge fan of these kinds of programs, partly for personal reasons. I actually, my first professional job was the result of an apprenticeship program. Now, it wasn't in tech, and this goes back a long time ago, like 1979 to be exact. But, I went from high school straight into a professional career in the building trades as a mason, and went through a very exhaustive apprenticeship program that, once I was finished with that and I worked for about a year, then I went on to get my journeyman's. But then I decided to change careers, and get into the IT space back in the mid 80s. And that was a community college experience, with a co-op program, which was in some respects, like an internship. But I just think that these kinds of alternatives have a lot of value, and I see this really growing in popularity as we move forward. It's great to see you all out there doing this kind of work, because I think it's very needed, and I think it's going to help a lot of people as well as companies, right?
Just increases the diversity and in every way. I mean, everything from people that are career starters, career changers, marginalized communities, people that are maybe in a zip code that they couldn't get into something or whatever it happens to be. It's just a great thing to be able to level the playing field and be able to say, you know what? You didn't go to college, or you know what? You didn't have this opportunity. You've been stuck in this dead end, whatever it happens to be, in 12 to 24 weeks. I mean, that's pretty amazing that you can get
Yeah.
somebody and lift them
Wow.
out of their circumstances in such a short amount of time. It's something that I think that we all need to really start to trumpet the value and the benefits to the
But
society for that.
it's inclusive as opposed to exclusive, which, um, again, not to rail on colleges and universities, that's not my intent. I'm a product of all these things, actually, over the course of several decades. But a lot of the big colleges and universities, it's a very exclusive student body. It's there's just so many people that are worthy of being there, but just don't have the means to be. And these kind of programs, these apprenticeships, as David said, levels a playing field, and it really makes it an inclusive program, which I think is hugely important. I think that's how you solve these big problems that we've heard for so long about, the cultivation of talent, and, being able to find people with the skills needed to go do the jobs that are out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And our mission is to work with organizations, because we feel if we can get organizations to adopt, they're the ones who hold the jobs. We can open the door and then bring people in and help them create that on ramp to help them get those jobs, and show them that there's this massive new on ramp to the highway, to where you can have generational change in wealth in your skills, and it impacts more than just individuals, it impacts their community, and the change can happen. And we feel it starts with organizations, and that's why we work with them to change their hearts and minds.
So if someone wanted to learn more about what you all do and to get additional information, where could they go to?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find us on LinkedIn, and also our website, apprentices.work. It's apprentices.work, not .com. It's a new domain, which can cause confusion sometimes, but we feel it works very well for our mission as well, apprentices.work. And feel free, there's contact information there as well. Find us on LinkedIn. We'd love to hear from you. Yeah, it's the best way to get hold of us.
That's great. Such great work that you all are doing, and it's terrific to have you here on our webcast to be able to talk to us about it. Really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you both for having me. Appreciate and love the work you're doing as well, and very happy to be here today. Thank you.
Are you looking to launch a digital badging program or improve an existing one? Look no further than Digital Badge Academy. Our highly popular online masterclass will help you gain the skills and insights necessary to achieve success. Enroll now and start learning today.